Hello and welcome to another installment of Metallic Reviews, the show where I take an honest look at the harder, heavier side of music and give it an honest rating. Today, we're diving into deathcore and examining an album by a band that I wouldn't say are pioneers of the genre, but they're definitely modern-day pillars. Yes, it's Chelsea Grin and their new one, Suffer in Hell, released November 11th on 1 RPM, which, according to my research, is less of a record label and more of this online distribution service. In any case, it is the band's first effort with this particular entity, and is also the first of a double album with its sister record Suffer in Heaven due next March. So how'd they do on this one? Let's find out. Let's just go ahead and get something cleared up right off the bat. This is certainly deathcore. This is very much deathcore. Led by the absolutely torrid vocal performance of former Lorna Shore frontman Tom Barber, Chelsea Grin funneled their way through a grimy, gritty, brutal, unforgivingly punishing performance. I will say it, this album was actually kind of tiring to listen to. It focuses less on the straightforward riff and more on this suffocating atmosphere with these crushing breakdowns that are just hurled in all directions and pummel you from all sides. So again, it's a deathcore album. The question now is, what do they do to set it apart from all the other albums in this genre? Because let's face it, friends, deathcore can be a genre that is very paint by numbers if one is not careful. Well, one of the things they have done to set it apart is their willingness to rely on these minor symphonic elements. Album opener Origin of Sin is not shy about putting this forward as Barber gurgles over this introduction that has the chugging riffs that we've all come to expect, but the slight bit of string usage in the background. It's actually pretty nice, and it weaves its way through the rest of the song. Deathbed Companion is another excellent example of the band's smart, tasteful use of this type of atmospherically grandiose songwriting. It adds that little bit of extra kick that an album like this really needs. There's also, I would say at least, some Gojira/recent Fit for an Autopsy influence on here. The song Crystal Casket has that ever-present, ever-effective guitar slide made popular by those French titans in Gojira. Meanwhile, the follow-up track Flood Lungs has a chorus that seriously reminds me of Far From Heaven, the lead single off of Fit for an Autopsy's new one, Oh What the Future Holds. Yeah, it's not quite as blunt or on the nose, but in terms of overall songwriting, the similarities are definitely there. In fact, some might find a lot of this album a copy of either one of those bands or Lorna Shore itself, especially with some of the recent stuff they've done. There are certainly parallels between all of those groups, but I wouldn't say that this album is a carbon copy of anything else. It certainly has its own personality. Granted, it's a very violent one, but one nonetheless. Production-wise, it's everything we've come to expect from a deathcore release. It's all very crisp, it's very clear, but it's also very muddled and punchy at exactly the same time. Barber's vocals reign supreme in the mix on here, ripping from out of the soundscape and hurling their vitriol at the mic like so much acid and flame. The use of cleans on here is extremely limited, and they haunt the back of the tracks like these ghosts hanging over Barber's emotions. Then there's the rest of the group, who put their instruments through their paces, especially in terms of the drumming. The drumming on here is absolutely fantastic. At 26 minutes, this album is much more of a sprint than a marathon, but it's one that will leave the listener feeling as if they've been through a very, very intense workout. Like I said earlier, this album was actually kind of tiring to listen to, and that's not a bad thing. Overall, I can't say I out and out dislike anything here. Certainly don't hate anything. Yeah, it's deathcore, and we've probably heard some version of it before, but its willingness to rely on some minor symphonic elements and Barber's excellent vocal performance have it ahead of some of the pack. If there's one thing I would change on here, it would be in terms of the overall mix. One of my problems with deathcore as a whole is that the instruments tend to kind of bunch up together at one part while the vocals just leap forward. If they could just separate them a bit more, this album would have worked just a little bit better. Otherwise, it's very, very solid, and any deathcore fan out there is going to dig it. It gets a 4 out of 5. Thanks so much for watching. Click like and don't forget to subscribe for more weekly Metallic reviews. Next week, we're going to be doing another pretty big, pretty sharp gear shifting around here, as we're going to be visiting Doom pioneers Candlemass and their latest work, Sweet Evil Son. I hope you'll join me. You've been watching Metallic Reviews, where I give honest ratings to honest music, and I will see y'all next time.